But what about all the funny, witty banter that we had?
That can go to a different video. That'll be the after show.
Wow. But it was the pre-show.
No. Alright, so good versus bad design philosophy. What do you like about shooting stars?
Well, Submarine Cyos, I didn't completely hear what you said, but I think you asked
Really?
what do I
It
like
worked
about...
for the entire time, and it cut out there on the first question?
I think you asked about shooting stars.
Do you like shooting stars as a talent? Is it a good or bad design?
Alright,
regardless
so
of the ridiculous proc
iteration
rate.
of shooting stars, I really like the current iteration where it doesn't have any kind of DR, it doesn't have any kind of cap on multiple dots. I think going back to like the Throne of Thunder way of multi-dotting is kind of the correct thing, or it feels a lot more rewarding to throw out a new dot and say, alright, I'm going to get maximum benefits from throwing out this dot with this talent. I think that feels good, although shooting stars is like really strong and I think it should be nerfed to like 2 or 3 astro power, or just nerf the... I wouldn't nerf the...
We have a calculator for that, you know.
Yeah, it's right there. But I wouldn't nerf the proc rate. I would nerf the astro power generated by it. I think that would be the best course of action. So that way we actually...
What do you think the proc rate should be? 30% then?
I mean, it was at 50% its first iteration, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't want to nerf the proc rate too much. I would say a 40% proc rate sounds fine, and then I would probably put the astro power generated at 3.
Okay.
But that's just
85 astro power a minute, though.
That's just me kind of spitballing. 85 a minute isn't that much. When you compare it to, like...
It's a lot lower than 100, basically 180.
Yeah. I mean, when you compare it to some of the other talents on the tier, what's the second one? Warriors of Loon or whatever that do instacasts? I mean, that one's like, what, 20? That's 20...
20 and 45 seconds.
But it's 3 GCDs spent every 45 seconds for 20 astro
Just consider
power.
it off the GCD. They better change that. There's no way it's going to take that talent. Otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, in its current iteration, I don't see very many instances where you would actually take that. I mean, we can just transition to that talent if you want, but I kind of want to hear your thoughts on shooting stars. Although you're probably
shooting stars. I am
submarine.
going to go. I'm going to go and say that it needs diminishing. That way, it can be good on single target and multi-target, and still be better for multi-target than other options if tuning is proper. Now, I like round numbers. 5 and 0 are nice numbers to use. I'm biased on that.
This is so beautiful right now.
Is it going up and down, or is it actually synced?
No, it flatlined at like an almost unaudible noise.
Oh.
But pretty much what you said is you want to have DR so that way they can have the baseline of it, like the baseline proc rate and astro power generation, be worthwhile on single target, but still also be a compelling choice for multi-target. That's what you said.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
And Warriors of Loon can be actually competitive if the splash damage was modified to 100% too.
Okay, so
that would be awesome.
I would like to talk about all of the level 15 talents, because I think there's a lot that can happen with all of them.
It's a DPS row, yeah.
Right, sure, for sure. Now, in my mind, what I would want the soul of each talent to be, or what I feel the soul of each talent to be, is I would want shooting stars to be multi-target in a scenario where you would actually dot multiple targets.
Are you thinking something like, hey, this ad spawn, kill it, 10 seconds, it's dead? Or
no, I'm thinking something more like a council fight, something more like an Archimond, where an ad's gonna live for 20 seconds, or later on in the fight you have, for instance, these Infernals spawning that each live for 10 seconds, and you want to distribute damage to all of them because they all need to die ASAP, so you're gonna dot all of them. Or again, like a council fight. I don't necessarily think burst damage. When I think Cormrock, that's where I would actually want Warriors of Loon to fall into place, where you're going to have a pretty high AoE phase, but not for a particularly long amount of time. That's where I would want something like a Warriors of Loon. In my head, it's like you can use Warriors of Loon for burst single target, burst AoE, or you can use it for movement. Of course, in its current state, it's not good for any of those. Um, I mean, maybe situationally it would be really good on like high priority, like a Doomfire spawns, and you really need the extra damage on the Doomfire, and you don't need the other talents for the rest of the fight.
How
So,
about the conflict between Alkin Frenzy and Warriors of the Wood?
well, that's fucking retarded, and they need to fix that shit. But
Yeah.
I mean, they probably will. Like, for right now, I'm gonna credit that to being an oversight, but they're probably gonna fix it where, like, if you have a Warriors of Loon proc and an Owlkin Frenzy, it'll consume the Owlkin Frenzy first.
Well, that being said, we just have a lot of instant casts in general because
Yeah.
of
Oh,
Alkin Frenzy.
you were wondering about my point for using it as potential movement.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
Other
I can see
than the
that.
fact that Alkin Frenzy is just pure RNG.
Sure. I mean, you can see that too. Or depending on which ability or which proc it consumed first, you could actually just say that like if your Warriors of Elune consume this if you consumed Warriors of Elune proc before you consumed the Alkin Frenzy proc, you could actually save the Alkin Frenzy proc for something like a New Moon. I mean, either way, there could be a little bit of gameplay around that, but I don't want to get too off track on that one. So Shooting Stars is like multi-target in my mind. Warriors of Elune is single target, burst AoE, like burst single target, burst AoE, or movement. I kind of want it to be more of that burst route, and I would want Star-Lord to be more single target focused.
Single target, sustain, with a little bit of burst,
Yeah,
just because of mechanics.
just any single target, to be honest, because
Okay.
the reason I don't want DR on um on Shooting Stars
You
is
do know
because
that the DR still equates to
it
more
still makes
astral
it
power.
yeah, okay, I know it's still worth it on multi-target. But they could tune it so I mean eventually you would hit a cap, right?
Well, there's
Say
a threshold. I think it's after like 8 dots for a single one,
yeah.
where it just kind of the change is so minimal you won't notice it.
Sure, but I mean you look at a fight where you look at it well, I mean 8 dots even. All right, let's take 8 dots. 8 dots, there's so many fights where I would actually have 8 dots out because that's just 4 targets, right?
No, that's 8 dots per Moonfire or Sunfire.
16 dots?
Technically, yes.
Alright. Well, I mean, even then, you look at a fight like Sokrathar and the ad spawn, and you have, what, 6 or 8 Sunfires out, and you Moonfire all of them if you have enough time for it, and it's like, there you go, you already reached your cap, and,
That is a very large number of procs.
yeah.
You get with
Well,
8 dots
so,
running, you have 2.4 essentially.
I
procs per
recognize
second.
that a DR would be fine, I just don't want them to tune it so that Shooting Stars is worth it on single target. How about that?
So less on single target, and if multi-target comes into play, it starts to
Yeah.
equal
I
out
want
and then excel after
I
a
want
certain
Shooting
point.
Stars to be a compelling go-to pick on multi-target. I don't want it to be hyper competitive on single target.
Well, that's understandable, and I like that. So what am I thinking? Oh,
In other news, I hate Star-Lord and I think it is a very boring talent, but they should like buff it in some manner or rework it. I think a rework would be better, but
so Star-Lord as it is right now, it's at 10%. Would you say, given it had to stay, 20%, 25, 30?
what is it? It's 10%
Right now,
damage or 10% cast speed?
haste.
10% spell haste on empowered
Yes.
spells? Does that include Stellar Flare though?
Good question.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter. It's gonna be.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think it matters at
I
all.
don't think it is actually.
Um.
Right now, at least.
Uh. So, I mean, 10% doesn't feel very compelling. It's certainly not compelling for Solar Wrath because we're like already
GCD
GCD capped. Yeah, on Solar Wrath. And I mean, there is that artifact talent later on that every spell you cast reduces cast speed while in CA. So even on, I mean, that's totally going to depend on how much burst we do and how good our burst talents are. Of like, I mean, right now, Moonkins are all about burst, and a lot of that has to do with ring. But, I mean, even mob iteration of Moonkin was all about burst, so we'll see if that carries over into the leg.
Well, in my opinion, I think Star-Lord can stay as is with the 20% modifier. That way it's just Euphoria without the...
20% seems like Starfire's gonna have, it's gonna be on GCD cap, right? Right now it's at like a 2.2.
Oh, it takes a lot more for GCD cap. Let's figure that out.
Yeah, well, I don't want to figure that out.
Well,
But
I'll figure it out for you.
alright, so if we had like a 20% baseline haste, and then we had 20% spellcast, and then we had the artifact thing, it's, I mean, you're gonna get pretty close, like with Lust, and if you're a troll, and I mean, I'm not a troll, so I don't have to worry about that, but for the sake of trolls, I wouldn't want to put them in another situation where they have to delay berserking by X amount of time to make sure they're not GCD capped. Like, you would hit, I mean, you would get the Megara trinket proc, the breath or whatever. What was that trinket called?
Megara's breath.
Yeah, you would get that. You would get that trinket proc, and you wouldn't hit berserking on pull because you were already at GCD cap, so you would delay it until after your trinket proc fell off. I wouldn't want to be in a situation like that again. Staggering, I don't like the idea of stacking cooldowns anyways, and I think Blizzard is trying to move away from stacking cooldowns.
I hope they do.
But staggering stacked cooldowns feels even worse. Although it's a lot more interesting.
We'll have to talk about Collapsing Stars about that, because
there's a lot of issues with Collapsing Stars, but it has so much potential.
Yes. Especially the visual.
Same with Stellar Flare. Right now, Stellar Flare, there's a lot of oversights with Stellar Flare and Collapsing Stars, but I hope they get them in good spots.
Okay. What do you think about, well, let's just go. What do you like more, Displacer Beast or Wild Charge? Given Moonkin form Wild Charge was off the global cooldown, which one would you want more, Displacer Beast or Wild Charge?
Alright, well, you went full submarine again, so...
Which one would you like more?
Displacer
Wild
Beast
Charge,
or Wild Charge?
Wild Charge, no GCD on Moonkin form. Jump.
So no GCD, Disengage, or Blink.
Yes.
Those are my options? Okay. It's a 30-second cooldown for Blink still, right? It would be a 15-second cooldown for the Disengage.
Yes.
So at the start of Mob,
you don't get the run speed. Sorry, you still get the run speed for Blink, of course.
So at the start of Mob, I was really all about Wild Charge. I thought it was the coolest ability ever. I used it all the time to reposition myself on a fight like Blade Lord. I would use it because the raid knockback would happen, and I would disengage immediately after, and I would like line it up so I perfectly fell in my spread spot and shit like that. But the Blink is so good as like an oh shit button, kind of like how Renewal has been this tier, where during progression you're not going to play super perfectly for your first 20 pulls of a 200 pull or 100 pull boss fight. So having like the Blink as a safety net for when you fucked up a mechanic or what have you, you need to get from point A to point B really quickly. I think the Blink is just better because it's instant.
So, would you say the Wild Charge without the GCD would be good in some scenarios, but if you really need to move, Blink is just better, in which case...
Alright, so since it's 2 GCDs on...
No, just in a pure sense of the word.
Okay. Well, I'm going to compare the two of them because...
Go for it.
Because that's... You know, that's the decision you're given when you choose a talent from that row.
Yes.
So, with Displacer having a 2 GCD hindrance or whatever, right? It feels really bad, but it's like your 2 GCDs probably aren't going to make or break the fight, right? I think as farm continues, if Wild Charge were off the GCD, it would probably be way better. You hit a point in farm where you just know the mechanics so well. If you look at something like Iron Reaver, first of all, You should never have to move on Iron Reaver because, I mean, the barrage goes on healers, so you should never have to move from that. The healers should be placing in the right spot. But hypothetically, you did, and your healers didn't know that. If you could Star Surge, Wild Charge, and then after you landed, just go back to hardcasting, that would be so much better. If you got so fluent with a fight that you knew when you were going to have to move, and you had no GCD loss as a result, or like a half a global or partial global or whatever, I actually think Wild Charge would be better if
Let's
you
say
were
you had
that
a
good at
fight
the
where you
fight.
had to move once every 30 seconds. Guaranteed.
I guess that
Take Wild
depends on
Charge
the
still?
distance and why you're moving, and
Big
what mechanic
AoE,
you're doing.
you would die, and it's about 25 to 30 yards for radius. So
25 to 30. If it's 25 to 30, it would probably take Displacer Beast. I mean, if you didn't have a choice, you had to sit in the middle of that AoE until it finished casting. Let's say like Lei Shen throwing axe, whatever it's called.
decapitate.
No. The one where the whole raid moves from one corner to the other.
Oh, which one was it?
It's the. I mean, you know which one
Is
I'm
that the
talking about,
bouncing
right?
bolt, whatever it is?
What? No. It's
Not
the
that one?
one main mechanic in Phase 1. Where your whole raid has to move. Your ranged is stacked, and then he throws out the mechanic.
Oh, Thunderstruck. I
Yeah,
never moved for
Thunderstruck.
that.
Yeah, you stood there with Cloak, right?
Yes, like a total
Yeah.
badass.
Yeah, same. So, let's say it was a Thunderstruck mechanic, and you had to be standing on one specific spot until the mechanic went out. And then the mechanic goes out, and you have to move 30 yards, right? In that situation, I would take Blink. Because it's instant, it gets the job done, and it's an oh shit button for later on in the fight.
Now, what if you had something like Iron Juggernaut with his 3 knockbacks?
Well, yeah, then you would take Wild Charge, because you would be able to Wild Charge at least 2 of them.
Did you ever Goblin Glider on it?
Yeah, of course. You would Cloak 1, you would Goblin Glider, and you would
Wild Charge.
I can't remember
If you
I
wanted to.
if I blinked.
You could
I wonder
Wild
if I did
Charge
something
Goblin
else.
Glider if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Then you could save your cloak for
Well, I mean,
whenever you get burned.
no way. You don't need that. Just yell at your healers.
I just heal myself. Do you remember that? I kept dying, so I just healed myself. I'm like, Cyous, why do you have so much healing in yourself? You just aren't doing shit. That'd be part of the
It was a good tier.
It was a fun tier. Alright, so given renewal, if you didn't have to move, you'd probably take renewal.
I don't know, man. That's a really tough one. Choosing between Blink and Renewal, that's a super situational fight and mechanic dependency, because I've gotten so used to having Renewal since we've lost all of like our
Do you guys one heal?
no, we don't really one heal on anything, but since I've gotten so used to having that as an oh shit button, I mean on Blackhand it was really big for me to have Renewal so that I could keep myself alive on the balcony and whatnot. And I honestly have no idea which one I would pick. I would probably take Blink for most fights. Again, it's an oh shit button, and if I really needed to heal myself, I would regrowth. Or Swift
I would
Mend.
Swift Mend.
Yeah, Swift Mend. I mean, we are given Swift Mend, and it won't be as good as Renewal, or probably won't. But
It heals me for about 90k right now, but my heal is pretty strong.
yeah. I mean, we have Swift Mend now, and we can rejuve ourselves. I mean, I've always rejuved myself if I have like movement and whatnot. Like
If
for
Swift Mend crits,
Blackhand,
it's like 15% for us. But
yeah. Yeah,
so
with the
renewal
addition of Swift
situational
Mend,
then.
yeah, with the addition of Swift Mend, we might not need Renewal, but we still are missing a lot of defensive cooldowns that we had like back in Mob.
And
Just
that
in
brings
Mob, we
us to
had
the
no
next
need.
tier then.
Yeah.
Because Guardian Affinity, because we all know Feral garbage, but we'll talk about that last. Resto
Yeah.
or Guardian? Which one do you like more? Because I like Resto for
Uh,
leveling, but I prefer Guardian for raid content.
Yeah, I mean, I think Guardian's just gonna be the default one for raiding. I don't think you're gonna have Unless it's like a Will of the Emperor fight where there is just constant raid damage and there will never be overhealing or anything like that, and taking reduced damage over the course of that fight isn't super big because you're not taking damage from a whole lot. Unless you're gonna get like maximum throughput through the restoration thing. I don't know. Again, I think that depends because if you take restoration affinity, you do get swift mend, right? That's the only way you get swift mend. So I don't know.
I need to do some Guardian testing.
Guardian affinity seems better, like baseline, but restoration provides more utility, kind of. You know,
Yes.
it gives you like more options. But it's not. That doesn't mean that it's better. It's just like it gives you different types of options. It's kind of like would you rather take less damage or would you rather be able to heal yourself up from taking damage? That totally depends on the fight.
All right, now for Feral, because we both agree on those notes. For Feral, obviously
I don't
the only way to
see.
make it better is to add more utility to it. For us, Moonkins, what do you think you would want? Given Stampeding Roars an option.
You said given Stampeding Roar is not an option?
Correct.
I would take away Dash baseline for Moonkins and put in Dash in Feral Affinity.
Do we have Dash?
I don't know.
I don't think we do.
If we don't have Dash, then they should put it in Feral Affinity, and that would make it a more compelling choice.
I agree.
But I'm a Worgen, or I will be a Worgen, so I don't really care. I'm gonna have like Dark
They should
Flight
take away your
anyways.
Dark Flight. They should just take that away, and then your Dash gets like 30% more sprint on it. So I've been trying to figure out ways to make the Feral Affinity better, and I don't want a repeat of the Heart of the Wild rotation from earlier.
What that Ferals had, where they would just
no, it was
cast Wrath.
Moonkin. You would go into bear form. You would go into cat form first, and you would lacerate and things like rip, etc. Then you go to bear form, lacerate. You just roll all those bleeds. You'll have your dots up, and because there was no AP scaling, everything was snapshotting based on what you had at that time. You can switch between forms.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like I loved the idea of Heart of the Wild, and like Blood Legion used it in a really cool scenario where they got World First Empress because they had their Moonkins tank the ads and shit on everything with vengeance. That was really cool, but there aren't very many situations where Heart of the Wild was actually that great. I actually take Heart of the Wild like baseline now, just in case one of our tanks dies. I can always just like hero, but it's not good for progression. So
I agree. I don't care about the level 60 talents, Mighty Bash, Entanglement, and Typhoon, because we're just going to take Typhoon.
well, I mean,
Entanglement's mechanically inferior. Like,
yeah,
oh, look,
I mean,
I rooted something for half a second. Yay.
well, I mean, it depends on like situation or whatnot. I mean, there are definitely going to be instances where you can like CC ads, and in that case, Mass Entanglement will probably be really good. But I mean, 9 times out of 10, Typhoon does.
Would
just
you
as well
take
CC.
Mass Entanglement over Typhoon when you have to control ads?
Yeah, I took it for Sogathar.
You're hurting my argument.
I know.
Trying to get it
Well,
changed.
actually, I took Typhoon for Sogathar, but like doing the Sogathar achievement was Mass Entanglement was good. I mean, I would take Mass Entanglement on like if we were to go back and do like Will the Emperor. I mean, it's like super fight, like all of those are fight dependent. I mean, I take Fairy Swarm right now as like baseline, and that's like the only utility thing I really take now. Ursul's, I guess.
But we're losing.
Fairy Swarm, it's really good, man.
We're losing both of those, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Alright, for the DPS tier next time, it is going to be Soul of the Forest, Incarnation, Stellar Flare. Do you like Incarnation? I like Incarnation. I'm sick of using it. I'm sick of using it for 2 expansions.
It's a pretty boring talent. It looks cool, I guess, but it's like, it lost its flair, you know?
When it became the default talent for...
It's been 3 years,
5 tiers?
so, yeah. No way, it's been 5 years. The fuck?
5 tiers.
Oh, 5 tiers. Yeah, default talent for 5 tiers.
That's going to be 4 years, though. You do realize that, right? It's going to be 4 years. 3.5.
It's been a long time, man. Getting old.
I miss DOC. Throne of Thunder.
Yeah, I miss DOC and Siege.
Alright, so Soul of the Forest is the 15% empowerment. It doesn't scale. How can we make it scale? So it's not as bad later on.
It kind of
Adding
scales
a
with like
passive
spell
to it
power
would
and
be nice.
mastery, right?
Well, so does everything else.
But yeah.
One of the ideas I
I
had
don't
for
like.
it was like put a passive bonus on it, like increase your starfall damage by like 6% or your dot damage by 6%. Just like a Heart of the Wild bonus, like 6 stats, something like that. But I'm not sure if that's compelling, but it doesn't have to be.
I just
Decent.
have a problem with Soul of the Forest and Star-Lord as talents because they nerf collapsing stars. And I think that's why I don't like them.
That's if you take collapsing stars, though. It's blessing
Yeah,
and
but
Ancient still pretty good.
yeah, I mean they make collapsing stars less appealing. They can buff collapsing stars however many times they want, but it's as the expansion continues, it's going to be less appealing because it doesn't scale with mastery and it doesn't scale with other talents. I mean, it scales with incarnation, but
Right. So on that note, Stellar Flare. What does it need to do in order to be usable, other than deal an appropriate amount of damage?
Soul of the Forest?
Stellar Flare.
Oh, wow, we're skipping tiers. It's totally my fault.
Well, we're
I
on
don't
the
want to talk
Legion.
about what?
We're on
I don't
Legion.
want to talk about collapsing stars yet. I have so much to say about that.
Exactly, you're talking about. I'm like, stop it.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's stick to Soul of the Forest then. I'm an idiot.
All right, what do you have left to say about Soul of the Forest?
It's pretty basic. I'm okay with passive talents, but uh, it's not a bad passive talent. It puts a lot more emphasis on single target, potentially burst AoE. If Warrior Balloon ever becomes a compelling pick, you know. I mean, there's
Stellar
some stuff.
Flare, though, is that damage bonus. I have to figure it out. Star-Lord actually scales with it, but I actually wish it had some
Oh, what were we? I was
generation.
talking about. Were we talking about Stellar Flare?
Oh, you can talk about Soul of the Forest if you want.
Oh
I'm
yeah, I
talking
was
about
talking
Stellar
about
Flare.
Soul of. Yeah, I'm done with
Soul of
Soul
the
of
Forest
It's
needs
a
help.
very Soul of the Forest is it's very vanilla, and I like old iterations of Soul of the Forest more. Obviously, some of those are gonna have a tougher time making an appearance, but like Soul of the Forest giving you a proc, like I don't know. I would like to see some more interesting.
Here's a suggestion for you, rather a hypothetical. What if Soul of the Forest put a uh, a balanced druid version of Ignite on the target when it got a critical strike, worth like I don't know 40% of damage. So it burned for an extra 40% on a critical.
I need to go find my suggestions that I posted on the feedback forum.
Well, you can do that, and I can talk about it. So if that were to happen, you would have a crit scaling mechanic, because right now Moonkin lack a crit scale. Obviously, crit is crit, and you get the bonus damage. Yeah, that has no comparison to haste in terms of actual output right now. Considering you have dot scaling, your dots generate astral power. In addition, you get faster cast, which casting, astral power, which is started. Casting, it's a feedback loop. It's just not very fun if you don't have a crit mechanic because you're always doing haste stuff. So if you had a haste mechanic, it would actually.
Hold on. I'm gonna talk here so that way your mic resets. I think this is how it's working. I won't go.
Was it fading down and down and down and down?
No, it's been gone for a while. I just didn't
Oh.
want to interrupt you, but I can't hear anything anymore, so we're
Oh.
gonna.
Okay.
I think me talking resets it though, so maybe I should talk more.
That'd be really interesting.
Huh. Um. So you said you wanted to make crit more appealing, right?
Yes, and I think Soul of the Forest has a application for that.
Sure. One of the talents that I suggested was After casting a Starfire, your next Wrath generates 100% more AP. After casting Wrath, your next Starfire generates 100% more AP. It keeps kind of to the idea of it is a damage modifier on your empowerments, but what it does is it gives you purpose to alternate your hard casts. And currently our only...
Starfire.
Oh my god, Starfire.
Oh, hi, Turkey. We're talking.
Currently our only incentive to alternate which abilities we're casting is the empowerment buff, which is cool and all, but like, single target I don't really... It's hard for a new player to understand whether or not they want to be casting Lunar Strike or Solar Wrath on a single target, you know? They're both really close, they generate about the same amount of astral power per second, they both do about the same amount of damage per second. I kind of like the idea of a talent that buffs your single target in a different way.
I actually like that suggestion. I think 100% more is a little much, but I do like it.
I have a... So the forest always used to be about, like, proccing things. So I had another idea that was...
So can I run an idea? Can I run an idea by you, real quick?
Go for it. Yeah.
What if, using your idea, what if Soul of the Forest just generated the opposite power? So you use Soul Wrath, you get a Lunar Empowerment.
I mean, wouldn't it be indefinite though?
Technically.
I don't know. That seems kind of weird. I would want it to bottom out at some point.
What if you had Star-Lord? Then you have a reason.
Maybe.
But that's true. It also depends on how frequently you get it.
I do like the idea of a talent giving our spells more purpose. I think that's always good. My other suggestion was for Soul of the Forest was if Starfire and Wrath now have a chance to proc a free Star Surge or Starfall. So you get a free one.
I would like that on Stellar Flare, to be perfectly honest. If you consume if you consume both empowerments for a Stellar Flare, your next Star Surge is free.
It's free to cast. Yeah, so that way it kind of like it would give you the opportunity to chain. So you could drop 3 Star Surges. Let's say you have a 4-target fight and you drop 3 Star Surges on target, or like just whatever, and you have all this. You have all these empowerments to consume, and so you drop 3 Stellar Flares out, and then you get a 4th one for free, kinda. I mean, it's still situational.
Though that has a feedback loop. Because
I feel like,
I think it would be better if Starfall was given as a bonus. Because that way you just don't feed into it, where you could just Stellar Flare, Star Surge, Stellar Flare.
Yeah, I think that's why I kind of liked the idea more of, you can proc either a free Star Surge or a Starfall. Well, I didn't really like elaborate on that. I just kind of put a slash in there and was like, you know, you can pick whatever one you guys deem fit or whatever. But I mean, obviously, since Star Surge and Starfall cost different amount of astral power, it's like you're probably gonna use the Starfall if there's any more than one target. But who knows? I'm sure they can find a way to balance
Stellar Flare
that.
is the multi-target stuff, hopefully. Incarnation can be more burst and general purpose. And then the Forest can be single target.
I do, right now, I like the ideas of the talents, or I like where they come from per row. I mean, you look at the first row.
You like where the first row came from our 100 talent last time, and then so the Forest comes up from... Soul of the Forest.
I mean, you look at Soul of the Forest, Stellar Flare, and Incarnation is like, it's burst, but it can also bleed over into multi-target burst, you know, single-target burst, it can,
it's
priority
all
add. Yeah, it's a DPS cooldown, but it can be used for a little bit more than that. I mean, I think Zoomkins commented on why he took Incarnation for what was the spoils? He took it for spoils. And at first I thought that was really weird. I was like, there's not a very finite time where you would want to use Incarnation in spoils, but you can make one, depending on your raid, you know? You can say, this is where we're lacking damage, let's get past this hump. So I like Incarnation as burst, Stellar Flare is kind of multi-target, but it's also, if you find yourself in a situation where you're floating excess astral power, and as a result a lot of star surges, you can focus more single target damage kind of thing, like if there's a lot of ads that you're dotting, but you really only want to focus down one of the targets, Stellar Flare may end up being useful because it's like pretty much a third dot for not that much investment, because if you're going to be getting a lot of astral power from multi-dotting, then you can just Stellar Flare single target,
Yeah.
And then Soul of the Forest is kind of like single target. So Stellar Flare is like multi-target, but could have single target.
Do you like how the
effects.
talents are set up like that, with the
Yeah, I do.
multi-target, general purpose, and a single target? Because
Yeah,
I like
do
that
like
idea. I always want a talent never to be the default talent for a particular
Yeah,
situation. I always want a choice, whether it be
I do
Incarnation
also
Soul
like
Flare or
that.
Incarnation Soul Forest.
I do also like that talents have synergy with each other, and I think that all of our talents should have more synergy with each other. Where you have, I think Collapsing Stars is a really great example. Like Collapsing Stars, you can look at all 3 of the level 15 talents and say all 3 of these play into Collapsing Stars because they are all a different means of generating astral power. But you could also say that they're good in different situations, where if they change it so Collapsing Stars isn't supposed to have 100% uptime in just like 20 or 30 seconds, Warriors of Elune for the added burst may actually be helpful to get you over some humps waiting for like full moon cooldown or whatnot. Shooting Stars, depending on the fight, like you're having a lot of multi-dotting scenarios, but Collapsing Stars is obviously a single target talent, but you can feed the multi-dotting into that single target damage. Like there's synergy with a lot of our talents, and I think that's really good, but like what you were saying, I think it's a good idea to have more of an all-purpose talent, more of a multi-dotting talent, and more of a single target. And Moonkins, to me, have always felt as though they should be able to multi-dot, but every spec should be able to single target with some degree.
And that's actually my main concern with the tier 15 talent, the Shooting Stars, Warriors of Elune, Star-Lord. There's a multi-target one. There's a, well, I don't know how to use it, talent.
Well, Warriors
and then there's single target.
Shit, so we'll wait for them to fix that and then figure that one out later. But
that one could be the AoE burst, and that's a
yeah. I mean, that's what I'm thinking.
Fine.
Is Warriors of Elune is really interesting at face. Well, I mean, it's really shit at face value, but it's really interesting too because it could be burst AoE or it could be single target.
In fact, I wouldn't mind if Warrior Elune had like an 8-second duration and 50% haste on Lunar Strike in particular, with added.
Sure. I mean, they could rework it to just like, this is a 10-second period. All of your Lunar Strikes during this period are instacast.
Instacast is a big deal. Cast with the splash. That would be much better because then it has use more than one spot. Star-Lord, on the other hand,
I mean,
if that's going to be the single target talent, it needs to affect more than just empowerment stuff. It needs to have a little bit more.
That's what I'm thinking. Some of these need a little bit more flair. I mean, Warriors of Elune is like underpowered for a lot of reasons, and Star-Lord is just kind of meh. Same with Soul of the Forest, it's just kind of meh.
They're there, but Shooting Stars actually impact something.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing, is like Shooting Stars changes your gameplay. And I love talents that change your gameplay or your mindset or, your way of thinking or playing. That's really appealing to me.
So you want to move on to the next tier with Stellar Drift and friends?
I don't really want to talk about Force of Nature. It's really... I hate it.
Okay, what about Nature's Balance? Balance of Power plus the new... all your Sunfires get refreshed.
Alright, so... I mean, again, it has a lot of synergy. It has a lot of synergy with, like, Shooting Stars and Collapsing Stars, and... I like Nature's Balance a lot. I think it has single target capabilities, and it has multi-target capabilities. Obviously, more multi-target capabilities than single target, but I think Balance of Power was originally intended to be a single target ability or talent.
I think it's supposed to be the quote-unquote easy option.
Oh, yeah.
It was
I mean,
boring.
I'm okay with easy options and stuff like that, but I mean, I think it was intended to be a single target talent, and then Tectus happened, and that was the only fight the entire expansion where we used it. And it was only good because it was multi-target.
It didn't really need it. I mean, uh, if you still had Euphoria, you got more Sunfire uptime effectively.
Yeah.
It was kind of a double-edged sword in a way, but that's because Euphoria.
Well, that was different because Euphoria changed how you played the spec because it was a faster
Can I divert
rotation.
to Euphoria for just half a second? What if
Sure.
the baseline rotation was 30 seconds, Euphoria was still 20 seconds? Would Euphoria be as useful as it was?
No.
I
No, it would
so
not.
too.
No, a 40-second time between eclipses versus 20 seconds is very noticeable. And and there are windows where an ad will be alive for 10 seconds, and that's really important, because if an eclipse only lasts 10 seconds, then you apply dot, the ad dies in that, and then you're in the next eclipse. You know, that's like, you don't have a lot of windows to dot things, but it's important that you get to both of those windows quickly.
So for nature's balance, what do you like most about? Well, how would you play with nature's balance given 3 targets?
I'm not sure. Wait, given what?
3 targets. How would you play?
Given 3 targets?
Would you cycle through like you would with balance of power using whatever
Well,
button you
balance of
have?
power?
It's
Or wait,
similar
hold
to
on.
balance of power. It's
Alright,
essentially the same thing.
so what was the talent in Mop that extended dots? Oh, no. It was crit, right? So how you would play in Mop is you would have 3 targets
That was
dotted.
Star Search crit.
Yeah, it was Star Search and Starfire crits. And so
Pretty sure
you
it
would.
was just Star Search, but
No, it was
that's
both.
beyond the point.
It was any crit. Star Surge extended both of your dots. Starfire extended Moonfire, and Wrath extended Sunfire.
That's okay.
And so in Mop, you would dot 3 targets, and I would practice this all the time on the training dummies. I would dot 3 or 4 of the training dummies, and I would alternate which mob I cast it on. And so I would Wrath on target 1, Star Surge target 2, and immediately go into a Wrath on target 3. And I think that's what you would do here. Well, I mean, if they extend everything, it doesn't matter, right?
Right. So speaking to that, what I would do is I would forego casting Solar Wrath altogether, otherwise depowered.
I'm going to talk, hold on, so that way you fade back in.
I would cast Lunar Strike, no matter what, minus Starfall, things like that, or Star Search.
I mean, this is also going to depend on whether or not ads are stacked, right?
Yes, if the ads are spread out, I would probably stick to Solar Wrath.
I mean,
try to Stellar Flare with other things.
Yeah, that's definitely a weird one, right? Because Moonfire has the longer duration, so you're going to be able to hold the Moonfire up for longer. Well, I don't know, because Wrath is a faster cast.
Let's
so
assume they're stacked. Let's just assume they're stacked. I would never cast Wrath, knowing that I could just Sunfire and get all my dots back up.
Well, hold on, that's a weird one too, because if they're stacked,
I would get the Lunar Strike Splash too.
Right, yeah. I mean, obviously the goal there is that depends on how many mobs there are, right? So if there's 2 mobs,
I would probably
would it be worth it? You would probably be worth it to alternate, since you're still going to be. I guess that depends on whether or not you're Star Surging or Star Falling, and how many mobs there are, and when it's worth it to Stellar or to Lunar Strike, right?
All right, give me a number. How many targets are we talking about? 2?
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about 2. Is it worth it to Starfall there? That's the first question.
Yes.
Is it worth it to Starfall?
Probably.
Okay, so if it's worth it to Starfall, then you're not going to be spending energy, assuming you want both targets to die, and you're dumping your Astral Power on Starfall. Then you're not going to be dumping it on Star Surge, which means you're not going to have any incentive to cast either Hardcast. So then it just comes down to which one does more damage, extends the dot life longer, and generates more Astral Power. In which case I would do Lunar Strike only because Sunfire cleaves.
That's the main reason, but also because after 2 targets, apparently Lunar Strike is stronger than Wrath.
Yeah,
Yep.
cleave. Yeah, on more than one target, I'm pretty sure the intended design is that we will Lunar Strike multi-target and we will Solar Wrath single target. I think that seems
It's
like what
reasonable.
that seems like what the design is supposed to be.
Okay.
Um,
Now, how many
yeah,
refreshes does that say?
I would Lunar Strike multi-target because it's better, but you also get a lot more benefit because it's only one global to reapply Sunfire to all your targets, so you might as well extend your Moonfires instead.
And Nature's Balance only works if the ad lives past
Yeah,
18, 15
yeah.
seconds.
I mean, it'll be more than 18 seconds. Like, you'll probably get your Moonfire to be like 30 seconds, maybe. Probably not that long.
I think I capped out at a pandemic limit.
Alright.
That's what
Well,
it is.
but no, I'm saying, like, how long you could actually keep it up for. I don't think you can keep it up indefinitely.
No. Well, if you
Depends on
rotate
talent
properly,
choices, I guess.
yes.
I don't know, man.
If you rotate properly, yes.
Okay.
Because
Yeah,
it's
well-
supposed to be boosting by a pretty huge amount, and you can cast, I think, up to 4 targets.
It was like 4 seconds or something like that.
Well, that's what the tooltip shows, but I think it's supposed to be 3 seconds.
Alright. Well, I mean, we'll see how things play through. I expect a lot of tuning to come in with Moonkin talents.
No, it's alpha. You don't tune anything.
You sit there and you wait, and then you launch as is, and then you fix everything with hot fixes.
And you remove
And then,
corpses. Well, the
and then your
skeletal
whole raid
corpses.
is... Yeah.
Then you crash your entire group. Definitely.
Yep. What's the... Alright, so, Force of Nature, I said I didn't want to talk about it, but I do want to talk about it because I hate it. It's like...
Okay. I like how they taunt for 15... I think it's 15 seconds. They're like 15
I think
second duration. Might be
they just decided that Force of Nature needs to be like this nostalgia throwback thing, where we get old treants, but they only last for 15 seconds, and no one really wanted this. It was just a nostalgia thing.
Not to mention their damage is crap.
Yeah, well, I mean, even if they did amazing damage, right? If they were the best 2-minute cooldown in the game, I would still hate it.
Yes, it would be
Because-
like...
It's 15 seconds, that uptime feels awful, and it's so lackluster, and the target reticle thing is just awful. I just hate everything about it.
It would be like playing like what we did with I think it was Soul of the Forest. Did we play Soul of the Forest in
For what?
DOC? On,
Oh, yeah.
No, we played Incarnation. I think we played
I mean, we played Soul of the Forest DOC. Soul of the
That
Forest
was
differently
still
back
fun.
then.
That was a huge change, but that was a
I mean,
fun
it was.
fight.
I mean, that's what I think is cool about talents like that back in Throne of Thunder, where you would cast Healing Touch, and your next 2 dots would do increased damage. I think that is an interesting talent because it changes your playstyle.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be a compelling choice in terms of DPS to be a good talent. It's
Every time you
compelling because-
cast Healing Touch, you gain a
sure.
stack of Force of Nature. That would be cool.
I actually used
Actually,
I
that would
used-
be really cool. Then
I
it makes
used-
sense for your other talent with the interim cooldown, like crappy
I
healing.
used Dream of Cenarius on Paragon's progression, on Paragons of the Galaxy, because our tank took so much damage that me casting a Healing Touch on him would always be useful. So I may have lost DPS taking that talent, but our tank didn't die. Because I was casting a Healing Touch on him every 10 seconds or 15 seconds or whatever.
It's because Vixen's not healing the tank, or is the only person healing the tank. Ah, inside grave joke with Prometheus.
But yeah, back to Treants. I like the current Warlords of Draenor and Mists of Pandaria iteration of Treants.
I do.
Yeah, I mean, they don't do a whole lot of damage. They need to be buffed.
They were
But-
buffed, but that's to
Air
overcome
quotes.
a bug.
Yeah,
We don't know
buffed,
what's wrong with them. Here's 100% buff.
and they still don't do any damage, so there you go. So, like, current iteration of Treants is good because it compels you. I mean, they don't want they don't want required add-ons and anything like that, and current iteration of Treants kind of says, hey, you need a notification for when your trinkets proc, and I get that Blizzard can think that's bad, but what is the point of putting trinkets with procs in the game if there's no way to min-max them? So I think having trance on a charge system where you can choose when you want to unload all of your trance and you can wait for procs and you can game that, or you can wait for a priority ad and they're not on a particularly long cooldown. The 2-minute cooldown just feels awful. I don't care how much damage they do in 15 seconds. It feels really bad. I can assume
They don't
that,
do anything.
yeah, if they get buffed out the wazoo, I can imagine that trance will be good for a lot of fights because you're gonna run into an ad where this ad needs to die in 5 seconds or 10 seconds. No ifs, ands, or buts about that, otherwise you wipe. And I can see where a 2-minute burst cooldown like that would come in handy. But that doesn't mean that it's a good talent, or that it's fun, or engaging, or compelling.
Also, if you unused trinkets kind of screw everything up, I really don't like them all that much.
Yeah, I mean, I
with
don't know
the-
how many on-use trinkets
With
they're
the
gonna have,
RPPM trinkets, if they're too, I wouldn't say that. If they're,
I'm
if the
excited. I
RPPM
feel like Blizzard is going to release some pretty interesting trinkets next expansion.
well, hopefully it's better than Seed of Creation or whatever it's called.
Hey man, I like that trinket.
It removed the only skill factor. Well,
You have a choice between single target and multi-target, and now you don't.
Basically, that was the entire thing of the
And then you
system, and they just.
And then you get really mad when your heroic Warforged trinket doesn't proc, because I know I do.
Oh, 94% chance. Better luck next time.
Better luck next time.
And then
Dude,
it doesn't happen again.
It's like a 1 in 20 chance to not proc, and it somehow doesn't proc 3 times in a row every time. Worth.
1 in 8,000 chance.
Yeah. So what do we have left?
Stellar Flare, Collapsing Stars, and then we have the other 2 points to talk about. Yay!
Man, dude. So much for a 20-minute video.
Well, you have a lot to say.
This is your fault.
Well, you talk a lot.
Well,
Stellar Drift.
It says you. What the fuck?
Yeah, I know. Says me. So.
Yeah.
Well, I talk a lot. You know.
Oh, Stellar Drift. Yeah, we both wanted to talk about Stellar Drift.
Stellar Drift. I was going to say for casting on the move, but let's just do that right now. Do you think you'll be able to utilize the Starfall AoE zone where you can run around in it and hit your target at the same time? Because I think no. General purpose, no. In leveling and shit like that, absolutely. Why not?
Yeah.
It's easy enough, but PvP, probably not. Probably press it. But in raiding, I don't think you're going to press it. Yet alone on top of yourself. Well, you'll press Starfall, but you're not going to put it on top of it.
Yeah, alright, so
put it on the mobs.
I'm gonna keep, sorry, I keep like trying to interject there, not because I wanted to talk, just so that you would not fade out completely.
Did I fade out completely?
No, I tried to stop you from doing that.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I love you, Bay.
I would like your opinion now.
Alright, so Stellar Drift, I love the talent, not because I think it's good or anything. I like the idea, I like having that option, you know? I like
how it bugs and just always up.
Yeah, I mean, I like that too, because I don't have to have the talent and I can cast and move permanently in dungeons. Pretty great. But, I like the idea of having this talent. I think it's good that the talent is in the game. I mean, they can buff and nerf it all they want, but to me, Stellar Drift is good for multi-target, and even if you run into a fight like Darumu, where there is just a minute of movement, it may actually be good. Or like on Blackhand even, you know? Like if you had Blackhand, but you also had a couple of ads, so you had like constant movement for a phase, and there were also multiple targets. That's going to be completely fight dependent, as with a lot of these talents, but
definitely.
I think Stellar Drift is a good talent, and it will have its place.
I just don't think raiding will have it and be its place. That's all I
maybe not, but I
the option is there.
Envision a fight where it could happen,
and I can play with my instant cast better.
Well, maybe, but we'll see.
But we'll talk about that shortly.
Yeah.
So we're gonna skip collecting stars because we've talked about that enough. Astral Communion. It is what it is. What else do you have to say about it other than the first?
Uh, yeah, Astro Communion is kind of like it's it's another one of those things where it's. I actually think out of all of the talent, when you compare it to like Star Lord or Soul of the Forest, I like Astral Communion as a talent compared to those. It will have a place as burst. It will have a place as like astral power generation. It it can have multiple functions, you know. It's its potential AoE, its potential single target, its potential burst damage on a priority ad, and it's how long of a cooldown is it?
60 seconds, I think.
Right.
Might be 45.
That's not terrible. Yeah, I didn't think it was 45, but as far as some of the more passive talents, it's certainly not bad, and I think that it will have its place. I mean, they could even buff it and reduce the recharge time on it a little bit. Maybe I don't know. It kind of feels right. It feels a little bit lackluster compared to the other talents, but I don't think there's many things you could do in the ways of
Well, here's an idea.
buffing it without reworking it. I
I've
think
seen a lot
a
of
better
ideas for it, actually,
well, I think a
particularly throwing
better
it
way
into
of
tier
doing it would
15.
I think a better way of doing it would be like generate like 50 astral power and then generate another 50 astral power over however long or something like that. I mean, you could rework it, but I do like the idea of on-demand astral power. I think it's good to have that option, but I
So, in
don't think
order
it's
to
going to be a
give
compelling choice.
Shooting Stars a competitor on Astral Power Generation, why not put Astral Communion in there with it?
So that was an idea that I struggled with a lot while I was like writing up my initial thoughts and feedback and whatnot.
You could replace Starlord.
Was was 15 tier 15 talents. They're all kind of made with the intention of astral power generation, but only one really shines through. So maybe it would be a good idea to put some other like right now we kind of you and I kind of saw it as like multi-target, single target, general talent, right?
Yes.
Um, but I don't think it would be a bad idea to have an astral power generation row. I think it would be a good idea to have one of those, but it I
So,
think
how much Alpha have you played, like hours wise? Like I've played, I think maybe 30 hours so far.
I mean, I've probably only played like a day, if that. I mean, I haven't spent a lot of time in the past 2 weeks because logs haven't been working, so I haven't had
Right.
too much of a reason.
So, would you say that the initial startup time it takes for the rotation to get going is pretty slow?
Sure, I mean that's a really compelling choice. Is Astral Communion is like, um,
Assuming you don't cast a 4 second full moon to open boss
yeah. I mean, Astral Communion is like, well, I think yeah, exactly. Going into a boss fight, you're gonna want to have a full moon ready to go. Obviously, on progression, that's not always going to be the case. So
There's not
having,
enough critters for this world.
yeah, yeah, having Astral Communion could really be beneficial. You know, it depends on how strong trinkets are. You know, it depends on how good Incarnation is and whatnot. Like how important our burst really is. Where Astral Communion could just be good. It could be good only because it lets us start doing damage instantly. You know, it starts letting us use our hard-hitting spells. Obviously, you can hold Incarnation until whenever you're ready, but you can't always hold Trinket procs. So,
And
it's
that's
really
why I
going to...
like Astral Communion up near to replace Starlord, quite frankly, because I think Starlord doesn't really have anything going for it.
Yeah,
It's either too
yeah.
weak or too strong.
Well,
And if
that's
it's too
why...
strong, it's kind of irrelevant after a certain point. Warriors of
Yeah,
Elune has room, Starlord does not. So if you put
definitely.
Astral Communion up there, one, you could have Shooting Stars be a nice generator.
I do
Two,
like...
Warriors of Elune can't be that bad if you have two good talents next to it.
I do like passive talents. I mean, you can make compelling passive talents. Shooting stars, nature's balance. They're pretty compelling passive talents. You know, there is
They're
thought that
easy to
goes
use
into
and they
them.
happen.
Yeah, they Like Nature's Balance specifically, it just happens, but there is certainly gameplay around how to min-max that. And I mean, you can consider that an easy choice or whatever. A player doesn't have to understand how to min-max that for it to be okay.
I would say
But
Stellar Drift's easier, and forcing like just
sure,
raw application of Stellar Flare,
yeah,
or sorry, Stellar Drift is the easiest. Force Nature is just the stupidest, and Nature's Balance is fine as is.
yeah. But as far as like Star-Lord goes, I mean, we talked a little bit about Star-Lord earlier, but I mean, when I was doing some of my initial write-ups, I will quote my own writing here because I'm that cool. Said, I don't think Star-Lord should be buffed. I think it should be reworked. And I will
I agree.
completely stand by that. There is no amount of buffs that you can put onto that talent to make it a good choice.
What
Not in
about
terms of
50%
damage.
haste?
No, well, I mean, yeah, but that doesn't make it like I mean,
It's not compelling,
it's compelling because of throughput. It's not compelling because it's a cool talent.
right?
It's
In which case,
yeah,
just
it's
off the
compelling
top of
because
your
it's
head,
over.
what would you do for Star Lord reworking it? And
Well,
just assume that it's like a tier of 100 talent, competing with
yeah, I mean,
Blessing of Agents and
I
Classic
think I
Stars.
gave a pretty good one earlier where after casting Starfire, your next Wrath generates more Astral Power and vice versa. It could
That's not the
probably
same
come
with
up.
Blessing of Agents, but yeah, that's definitely
So it would still
does.
kind of fit that same feel where it's an emphasis on hard casts and you like I don't know. That's what Star-Lord feels like to me. It feels like it's more of an emphasis on hard casts and single target and even burst, to be honest. Or like not burst, but sustained AoE with Starfire Cleave.
So moving to Blessing of the Ancients, because I'm saving Collapsing Stars for last. For Blessing of the Ancients, Anchi scales with haste and Illuminates plus 50% generation. Since the nerf to 10 and 6 for the generators, nerf strike wrath, it's still pretty. It's actually a better choice now, to be honest.
Resetting your voice.
It's a better choice now because the other spells got nerfed.
Right. Okay. Um, I actually, out of all of the testing I've done, I have the least testing with Blessing of Ancients out of any talent, I
I
think,
did it while leveling.
which may surprise you, because I think every Moonkin on Alpha right now has Blessing of Ancients as like their default pick because it's passive.
Though Collapsing Stars rocks.
Collapsing Stars is way cooler than Blessing of Ancients, but um, I mean, Blessing of Ancients, I'm not 100% sure how it works. Can you change it at any point?
No GCD, so you can just go with it.
You can you can
You just
change which effect
rapidly
you're
go.
benefiting from at
If
any
you put
point.
on your mouse wheel, you can change it as many times
I
as
like that
you
idea a
want.
lot. I think that is a good talent design in that case. Obviously,
So I
buff
would
and
put
nerf
a
it.
1 second GCD on it, just as
Sure.
it is. But that's fine.
I mean, I wouldn't put I
Or
don't know.
a
I
one
wouldn't put a
second cooldown,
GC
no GCD. That's what I
ICD.
meant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that way you can't spam it. But don't put it on the GCD with every other ability, because then it's like,
that would be bad.
yeah, that would be very bad. I do like the design of that talent. I mean, buff and nerf it however much they see fit or whatever, but I do actually like Blessing of Ancients as a talent. Actually, I think all of our 100 talents are really well designed. Maybe Astro
Especially
Communion.
Collapsing Stars.
Yeah.
Astro
But Astro
Communion is
Communion can
just in
be.
the wrong talent tier, I think. That's all it
Uh,
comes down to.
yeah, I can see that. I think Astro Communion should exist as a talent, right? I think there should be a Snap Astral Power Generator as a talent. That should be
Shit,
a
it could
thing.
just take the place of
It could
Force of
be.
Nature.
Yeah. I mean, it could be baseline even. Just like, well, I don't know if it's
Force of
baseline.
Nature
You're
is
just gonna
actually not
stack
that
it.
bad, to be fair. It's really not that bad in practice.
Yeah.
It tanks things for you, but
Actually, I just said that maybe Astral Communion should be baseline, but you would just stack it with all your other cooldowns, so I don't like having it baseline.
it should not be baseline.
Yeah. I like having it as a talent. I think it's a compelling talent idea.
So, I don't want to talk about it too much, but Cloud Stars is awesome. What do you like about it the most? I like the damage.
Yeah, I mean, I like Collapsing
There it
Stars
is.
a lot. I think it's really fun. I think it's an amazing talent in terms of different gameplay elements, where you're not focused on spending astral power, you're just focused on generating it and keeping up your dots and whatnot. Um, Obviously, it has a few glaring issues where it doesn't scale with other talents as well as it could, but it does scale with a lot of talents. I mean, it scales really well with Nature's Balance and Shooting Stars, and potentially Incarnation and even Stellar Flare if they reworked Stellar Flare to benefit from Shooting Stars. But Collapsing Stars has no benefit from Mastery, so I mean,
That's
it
a pretty
has the
easy change to you just nerf the damage and make it benefit master at that.
yeah, I would totally agree. Or you can just buff the spell power ratio on it. Nerf
It
the
does
yeah,
the
nerf
same
the
thing, but it doesn't scale
yeah,
with master at that point.
sure.
I think it
Yeah.
hits hard enough as is. The nuke, the initial hit, just
Yeah,
hurts.
it
It
yeah,
will
does like
kill
three
mobs.
times does like three times the value of a tick, right?
Yeah, it's well, 2.5.
Yeah, I mean
400.
I would say Collapsing Stars is a really well designed talent. It's very much like Shadow Priest Insanity, and honestly, I'm okay with that as like a crossover mechanic. Um, and yeah, I don't know, nothing but praise for that talent. They need to fix some of the issues and interactions like the mastery thing. But yeah, I mean, I said to you off stream or whatever that a lot of our artifact talents like buff the damage that our empowerments do. So if both of our empowerments do 10% more damage because of our um, artifact, and Collapsing Stars doesn't see any of that benefit, then that feels kind of shitty too. You know, it's going to be the same thing with Stellar Flare. Stellar Flare's not going to see any of that lunar or solar empowerment damage, unless it does. I don't know. I actually don't know anything about that because we don't have that talent unlocked. But
I think Stellar Flare does, yes.
okay. But yeah, I mean, Collapsing Stars is a great talent. So
So, playstyle wise, one of the things I've tried to do is see how well I can maintain it with just one target. And I could almost get it indefinitely
hold on,
really
resetting.
given I maximize my alch and friendship procs, I could almost always maintain it long enough to kill a rare mob. Which
So
is about
almost
30
always do
seconds.
what?
Maintain collapsing stars long enough to kill a
Yeah, I
rare
mean,
mob.
I can main Collapsing Stars 100% uptime on one target.
Yeah, it's pretty much doable. But
Yeah,
after the nerf, no, it's not.
yeah.
Well, it's close, but you need
I mean, if you have like three targets that you're dotting with Shooting Stars procs, I mean, you should be
you
able
only
to
need
kill
2, I
Collapsing.
think.
Yeah, yeah. Just doing
Even
it on
then,
like the mop training dummies, you can keep Collapsing Stars up 100% of the time just from yeah.
you can
So
actually
I
do
mean,
that.
if you look at like a lot of fights where like that'll be useful in a lot of situations. Any fight where there's like Archimond, for example, where there is kind of two target cleave, or like Tyrant would be a great example where there's two target cleave the majority of the fight, but your main focus is single target. You could keep Collapsing Stars up indefinitely because you have the two target sustained astral power generation, and you're just dumping all of your astral power into the boss constantly.
Yeah, you can almost maintain with 2 dots each.
Yeah.
And oh
Um,
my god, that is so much damage.
Yeah, I mean, Collapsing Stars in my logs was just a ridiculous amount of my damage. Of course, you're dropping Star Surges and empowerment damage and all that, so it's obviously it's a little bit of a give and take, but it feels great. It's a well designed spell. Obviously, tuning will have to come in with astral power generation and how much damage Collapsing Stars does, but I think if tuned well, it's great.
I really, really, really want to try using Astral Fusion with Galactic Stars because I think there's a lot of synergy with that, given Astral Fusion
Yeah,
is in
of
like
course.
tier 15. That has so much
Yeah, I
synergy
mean,
behind it. It's
even if they
smart gameplay.
reworked
That's what I like
even if
about
they
it.
reworked Warriors of Elune to be a little bit more compelling, I mean that would even have some great synergy. I mean,
Well,
Ku just
Galactic
said that
Stars
in
isn't
chat.
that good on multi-target
Hmm.
because you have to
Well,
assume
that
that Shooting
depends on the
Stars is
fight.
going to get You have to assume Shooting Star's going to get killed. Not killed, but killed.
You would have to. That totally depends on the fight. Like
Yes, it does.
if you're just burning one target, then Collapsing Stars is going to be great if you can keep it up for a decent amount of time.
But on AoE,
on AoE, it's not necessarily
Stars.
that good. Yeah, on AoE, you might want to just take Astral Communion.
You probably want that filler count that we haven't discussed yet, the one that we just make up. But
which?
No, I mean, I was just gonna say if we move Astral Communion, we get a new talent.
Yeah. I mean, there's still a lot of holes in the Moonkin thing. I mean, there's a couple artifact talents that haven't been announced yet for Moonkins, right?
I'm pretty sure they're reworking. They might be reworking New Moon, Full Moon, and Full.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
there's also an artifact talent that says something cool goes here, so I'm pretty sure that's not final.
Yeah, that was the quote unquote Rune of Power one.
Oh yeah.
Sign of the Night Sky. It was going to be worth 2 cast, I think, a 50% modifier.
Yeah, I mean, I would honestly, the biggest qualms I have, the biggest gripes I have with the spec is Star-Lord doesn't feel compelling, Soul of the Force doesn't feel compelling, and Alkin Frenzy is clunky as all hell.
I don't like Alkin Frenzy as it is right now.
Yeah, I don't either.
We've discussed that plenty. We've mentioned it multiple times at least.
Yeah.
So
I'm okay with it existing, but it needs to be like it's a chance to proc every 2 seconds. Like
it's 50% every 2 seconds, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 50% every 2 seconds. Like an invisible mob is hitting you every other global, and it's a chance to proc it. Then so it's really awkward. There is a lot of ways to track that and game that. It's just going to be another add-on that's like, you have a 50% chance to proc an instacast right now, be ready for it, and watch your cast bar and your buffs.
It'd be Lunar Strike, proc, Lunar Strike, Solar Wrath.
Yeah.
Then you get a proc, and then you just chain it like that.
It's not promoting good gameplay. There is a lot of ways, like, you will see great Moonkins being able to abuse that, and you will see good Moonkins left in the dust as a result, because that many instacasts over the course of yeah. How many instacasts over the course of a fight will matter a lot.
How many good ones you get, because it's all about that Lunar Strike damage. Because it does heal more.
Yeah, especially if there's multiple targets. I mean, even using it right now, using it on like a new moon cast or a half moon cast,
So, I'm going to turn off the stream for half a second so we can just break up the video. Then, we can do min-max versus preference build if you want, and we'll try to keep that to like 15 minutes.
This has already been going on for an hour and a half.
But you like talking, and I like talking.